So you have a ramp below you, and you also have a ramp above you. And from that position, what you want to do is you want to put a cone on the top of your ramp. And a really simple way to get into this is if you put a platform, you move forward a little bit, and then you look directly down. That way a ramp places above you, and then from there you can go into this build. And when you're going for the build, you want to place a cone above you, and then you want to place a cone to the right side. And as well, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're also placing the floor on that right side as well, because if you don't place the floor and you go for the edit on the pyramid, what's going to happen is the pyramid's going to break and everything connected to that pyramid is going to break. So you're going to fall every single time if you don't place that floor. So when you're going for the edit, you want to make sure that you're placing the floor on the build. And this is the build that I've been practicing a lot more recently, and the reason being, it's really good for two things. One is you're turning around in a fight, and a lot of times when you're turning around, you're not going to be placing the floor in the cone. That's kind of just extra for editing. In a lot of games, you're going to be making that same kind of turn, so it's really good to practice that kind of turn. And as well, it's really good to practice editing a floor in a pyramid, and that's just something that took me quite a bit to learn how to do really, really well. But it's something now that I think I have really, really well. And when you're going off the turn, when you're doing a build like that, you're not going to have all the time in the world to go for the both edits. So that's why I think that build and edit is really, really good, because you have to be able to do it quickly if you want to be able to do it. And with every single build and edit that I'm going to show you guys, you also want to practice doing it off the other side, because in an actual in-game situation, you never know which side is going to be best to challenge off of. And of course, you could always challenge from the same side, but there's going to be a lot of situations in which it's going to be even better to challenge from a different side. So just working on practicing on both sides is going to be really, really helpful and help you guys practice a lot for actual games. And so the next build and edit that I want to show you guys, and this is something that I know for a fact I do every single game. If you guys watched my previous video, it was something like how to win 99.9% of gunfights. I talk about this in my video, and it's basically knowing how to box in and how to play off of that in a build fight, and it's really going to help you guys out win a lot of gunfights. So this is something that I do a ton when it comes to actual games, and being able to do this quickly on a controller is not the easiest thing, don't get me wrong. So when you're actually going to do this, the best method that I do, or usually what I do, is so I'll build around in kind of like a circular motion. So I'll end up placing my wall in front, wall to my left, and a floor underneath if I need to, and then the wall on my right, and then finishing it off with the floor and the pyramid on top. And of course, that doesn't mean it's the best order to do it in, because if you're in a game and there's people above you and they're probably looking down at you, then you more than likely want to be able to get the floor and the pyramid on top first, and then go for the floors and the walls afterwards, because that's going to be one of the most important things. And I'm not going to lie, when it comes to doing something like this, and if you want to do it really, really fast, especially if you play on controller, you're going to have to be able to have a higher building sensitivity or a higher X and Y sensitivity so that impacts your building, because being able to do this quickly does take a lot of movement, and if you're on a little bit lower of a building sensitivity, then it is going to be very challenging to do. So I would also recommend raising your building sensitivity if you feel like it's a little bit too low and you're not able to do this, because builds like this are really, really important and vital to winning games of Fortnite. And when you're in actual games, you're not going to be building this many 1x1s, of course, and usually in games you're going to be building 2, 3 at most. But if this is a build that you can get very good at when it comes to in games, it's going to be nearly impossible for other players who are around you to shoot at you. Because as you guys can see, when I'm building this, I'm barely allowing any time for any other player to shoot at me. So by doing this really quickly, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to get shots on me, get enemy for any sort of tags. It's going to be very hard for the other player to make a tag on me, because I'm already going to be boxed in. And usually in actual games, most of the time I'm going to be using metal, because if I'm boxed in, I don't want people to sneak up behind me, break my wall without me noticing. And if you're able to do the other build like I showed you, this build is going to be really, really easy to do. And this is something that's also very effective for rushing, or it could be effective for going for an edit play. It's where you place the wall and then you go for an edit from there. And usually I have my shotgun out when I'm doing that. And if you're able to get better at the other edit, coming to those wall edits, it's going to be very, very simple to do, because in the other one, when you're doing the boxes, you're taking so much more time, it's a lot more complex, and there's also a lot more to do. And that really is the main idea. If you're able to do a lot more complex builds, because a lot of these builds that you see in a lot of videos, you're not going to be using in actual games, but they are really, really good practice, because if you can get good at very complex and hard builds, the easier builds that you're going to need for every single game are going to be that much easier, and it's going to be very easy to win those type of games. So this next build and edit that I want to show you guys is basically you do double 90s, and off the double 90s you want to do a double ramp, floor, and wall. And the double ramp, floor, and wall is something that I use every single game as well, just like the other one that I showed you guys. And these type of builds are really important because 90s are something that I use pretty much every single game, and most of you guys who are watching this video already have 90s pretty good, because 90s kind of been one of those things that's been in the game for a really long time, at least a few seasons. So a lot of you guys at least have a pretty good grasp on 90s, and those aren't really the hard part. Maybe the hard part could be the when you place the 2 ramps, floors, and walls, and that's not really the hardest thing to do. You just really have to focus on being able to move back and forth quickly between your builds. And once you get pretty good at that, afterwards what you want to do is you want to go for an edit play where you edit the ramp and also edit the floor. And a play like that in actual games is a little bit flashy, and I typically don't go for it because if you're going against a better player, it can be pretty predictable, because if someone ramps above me that I see is a decent player and they go for a floor and ramp above me, most of the time I'm going to be waiting for an edit play downwards, because a lot of players who like to go for flashy clips like to go for that play. So most of the time I'm looking down for it, but if you're going against a sort of an average player, a lot of times you're going to catch them off guard and be able to actually get them in a pretty good spot, and you're going to be able to do a lot of damage, because right after you place the floor and the ramp above them, just about every single time they're going to turn around. So once you go for the edit play down, you're going to be right next to them, and their back is going to be towards you, which is going to leave you a free open shot. But working on this build is going to be very, very crucial to games. And also another reason why I use the double floor ramp and wall is it's very good for preventing you from getting shot out. So if you want to build up a little bit to place a launch pad, if you want to build up if you're going against solo versus squads, or maybe you're just going to give it, going up against multiple players, doing something like that is going to help you guys from getting shot out. So it's going to be very, very effective, and something that a lot of people need to practice if you guys haven't already mastered that. And one last thing I want to talk about in this video, when it comes to being able to edit a lot faster in Fortnite, it does take quite a bit of time, but when you're learning this, you also want to try to keep in mind, you always want to try to practice builds that you're not good at. So there's definitely a lot of edits, like ramp edits, that I really mess up a lot of the times in games, and certain edits like wall edits and just different edits like that is something that I hit every single game, and I really don't mess them up almost ever, so I don't really practice them a whole lot in creative or playgrounds. But ramp edits are something that I practice a ton because I mess them up all the time, just because there's a lot more movement to it than if you're editing a pyramid, if you're editing a floor, or anything like that. It's a little bit less movement, so it's not as hard for me. But when it comes to stairs, I mess them up a ton, so that's definitely going to be the number one thing that I'm going to be practicing in creative and playgrounds, and just working on getting those as good as I can. And with that being said, that's wrap up for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys liked it, and if you guys could, drop a like on this video, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, turn on my notifications so you're notified for every single new video, and alright guys, I'll see you next video.